Hi everyone, it's Anthony from Don't Crop Me Now. It's halfway through winter in the UK. Let's have a look what we've done over the winter period in preparation for our 2025 growing season. And we will start over on plot 2B. So we'll start where we normally do on 2B at the compost areas on the dividing line. So the compost bins are doing well, everything's sort of been dug out and moved around. They're all ready to be sort of turned, restacked and start to be refilled for the season. Panning across, we've got the fruit cage. So you can see in there that a lot of the fruit bushes have been trained into new shapes. Specifically this one here, there's a short video, there was another video about this one where we've trained that onto a frame to make it more manageable. There's no point having fruit if you can't get to it, it's a nuisance. In the fruit cage itself, there's a missing tree. There was a big plum tree on the side. It was growing far too fast and it was coming out of the roof, which isn't useful. So that's been removed and it's going to get replaced with a different variety. All the blueberry tubs are doing what the blueberry tubs do. They just chug along and do really, really well. You can see the real difference between the old and the new growth there, between the sort of pale brown and the sort of reddish purple branches. The roof on the fruit cage has suffered a bit, partly because there was trees growing through it and ripping it. So a lot of the netting, hang on, it's focusing on the wrong bit. A lot of the netting is hanging down. So we've got more roll in the polytunnel. So what we're going to do when the weather bucks up a little bit, I know it's nice today, but this is unusual, so I'm making the most of it. We're going to replace the netting on the roof. Ideally, you should take it off in the winter in case you get snow, because the weight of the snow pulls the netting down and wrecks it. In this instance, it wasn't the snow, it was the trees. Now, here's the interesting bit as we move away from the fruit cage. There's a large gap. That's where the fig tree used to be. So we've taken the fig tree out. The reason for that are twofold. One, all trees on the ground, all fruit trees, should be kept within 10 feet height. It was almost impossible to keep the fig tree within 10 foot. We'd hack it down every year to about 6 or 7 feet. And by the end of the season, it was back up to like 11 or 12 foot. And then the second thing with that was all the figs were at the top and we couldn't reach them. So it was kind of pointless. We've still got a couple of fig trees. There's one in that blue bucket and there's another one over in that blue thing. Let me just move. There's another one in that sort of blue and white barrel. So we have still got some fig trees and we've got loads of fig cuttings growing on that we're going to better manage by putting in possibly some of these larger containers. But it was a nice tree, but it was too big. It was too unmanageable. So that's going. What else is happening on here? Well, the fruit trees are doing okay. We've got a few that are doing all right. We're going to plant a lot more fruit trees in there, and we can see a little rhubarb bed where it's peeking through. The water butt, the observant of you will notice that the connection is no longer connected. That is going to move. That's going to go over onto 5B, and I'll show you where that's going to go when we get over there. The final thing on plot 2B is the polytunnel. So we have a fun task ahead because you can see that the roof of the polytunnel is covered in tree sap and moss and goop. So we've got to clean that. There's a couple of ways you can do it. Soft bristle brush, a long handle. Another way apparently is to get an old bed sheet, throw it over the top, and then one person each side like a giant piece of dental floss. So that needs cleaning. So that'll be a job again for a day like today, but we're very busy today. Rachel is here. She's just setting up for an event that we're doing, a seed and tool swap, which is why I'm doing this video. And let's have a quick look in the polytunnel because Rachel's been busy over the winter tidying this up. So there was a bed there. We've taken that bed out and paved it so we can make that a potting bench area and a little bit more usable. There's a bed at the end that remains, that stays the same, and down the left hand side as you come through this door we've got the same bed, and these are all the potato tubs that we've got. So there's actually potatoes in those. We'll just sort of empty one of those out if we need some potatoes. They're storing quite well, but we're getting to the point where they're probably going to start sprouting fairly soon. Down at the end we have another little potting bench with 11 million plastic things underneath it and some of our stored onions. So they're doing okay. And again, if we need an onion, we just grab a couple and take them home. And they're doing fine. So let's go and have a look at plot 4. So I'm just stood with my back kind of to the summer house. I'll just spin around so you know where I am for perspective. There's the summer house. Looking down the plot. So again, it's just been a lot of tidying up over winter, really. Keeping the plot in order, tidying things up, getting rid of rubbish. Fair few trips to the tip. That's a tongue twister. We've tidied this little area here, so there's just some charcoal left from when we had something going in the burning bin. Strawberry bed, but the changes are a bit further down, so let's wander down the plot. Our two little fish ponds are doing quite well. There's frogs in this big one, and there's two little goldfish in the other one on the other end, and I saw them the other day. They were quite happily tooting about. And then as we pan across, let's see if anyone spots the difference there. Well, basically what used to be there was a really big strawberry bed, and it was really big. It was really unwieldy to get in and get all the strawberries. So basically that bed that we are now looking at was the one that came from the Polytunnel, where it's now been paved and there's a potting bench. And we put that there, and we've reduced the width of the strawberry bed by about 50 centimetres or thereabouts. So it makes that path a little bit wider, because when that lavender gets fully going, that overhangs the path, and it'll make it a lot easier to be able to access all the strawberries all the way around. They're a really good variety of strawberry. We get a really good crop off them, so it is good to be able to get to them and not lose half of them just because you can't get to them, or to get to them you're treading on other ones. It was difficult, so hopefully that'll be a lot easier to deal with. Just behind that we've got the dahlia frame. We've not done anything with the dahlias. We just chop them down, chuck them in the compost and leave them. We've not had the harshest of winters. We've had a short cold snap, and we did have a dusting of snow, but it's not been terribly cold. So ours are generally covered with straw and sheep's wool, and they seem to do okay if they, you know, and hopefully they'll come up and they'll do well. The little frame is holding up well. It's, you know, it's a bit rustic, but it works. So there we go. Moving on. Now this is where there's been some work, because you may notice something appears to be missing from there. That was the fruit cage that we used to cover the asparagus. Now, it sounds weird because asparagus ain't a fruit, but the reason for that was we were losing all our asparagus and we didn't know why. And then one day we came down and we saw one of the local cats was just sitting there chewing on it. So we put a fruit cage over it in an effort to protect it from the cats, which worked, but the fruit cage was rubbish. And if you go back through some of our older videos, you'll find in pretty much every video one of us is moaning about the fruit cage, usually me, because it was terrible. It wasn't like the one over there. That's substantial aluminium poles. This one was rickety with rubbish plastic connections, and even, you know, in a strong wind it was always breaking. We were always mending it, so we took it down. And another plot holder's taken that off us, and he's going to use it to build his own something. I don't know whether he's going to build a fruit cage out of it, but he's going to use the materials to build something. So this is the asparagus beds. So the asparagus are still in there, so it needs a lot of weeding, and we will see what we get out of that. So that's going to need some wooden borders around it. So I have got some planks. So that'll be another job to do, but yeah, that's the asparagus beds. So we'll see how they do. We'll see whether, which cat was it? I can't remember. I think it was Galileo. We'll see whether Galileo's still got a taste for asparagus. Moving on, we have our rhubarb bed. And again, this is doing really well. We can see some of them rhubarb crowns popping up, and you'll notice that there's no border around it. That's because pretty much every single plank was rotten. You can see a rotten post there. Every single bit of it was just completely rotted. So that's all been taken out and burnt in one of the fires we've had. And I'm going to reborder that. So I'm going to make it a bit smaller. I'm going to get it back down to like 6 foot by 6 foot, 2 meters square. And we'll go from there. We've not done anything with this rhubarb. We planted 5 crowns 14 or so years ago, and it's just expanded and expanded. So it's pretty bulletproof, but it just needs sort of putting back in a bed, so to speak, so that it's tidy and easy to maintain the paths. Because if you look there, you can see where the soil's sort of falling out. That should be a path that you can get a wheelbarrow down, and it's like barely as wide as your foot. So just looking down the rest of the plot, it's just been a bit of tidying up really. Let's sort of step across this asparagus bed. I'll try not to get the early morning sun in our face. It's about 20 to 10 here, low sun. So let's just have a little pan around. So we've got the potato frames, so when the tubs go in, the tubs go underneath that, and then the stalks of the potatoes grow up, and the crisscross section on the top supports the stalks, stops them flopping over. Seems to work really well, so they're just sitting in place ready for next season's potato tubs. We've got a whole bunch of leeks here that are still happily chugging away, so they're good. And then we'll sort of move down to the end. Like I say, it's just been a lot of tidying up. So we've got another bed here. Here's another example. You can just about, well, you can see it. You can see that that bed is broken. And if I step, I'm just going to step onto the community plot so we can get a good view of it. Apologies for that wavy camera. But if you look at that, you can see this is one of the things I'm talking about when we're mending these beds. That bed on the right is bowing out something chronic. So I need to dig that out, move that piece of wood back into a straight line, put a support on the outside to keep it straight, and that will last a bit longer. If it keeps bowing like that, it's eventually going to break on the corner, and then it will be a full replacement. Again, same thing on this bed to the left, but it's already broken at this end, so this is going to get a strip cleared out on the right hand side of the bed, move it in a bit. You can see the path in the background. That's what we want. You want a nice path that you can walk down, and when you're working on your beds, you can crouch down, you can kneel on the wood chip, and you can work. You can't do that one and this one in the foreground. It's far too narrow. Moving on. What's over there? Let's have a look. Sorry, that was a big pause. Okay, so we got some Swedes lurking in there. They're doing okay. Let me try and get right up against the mesh so they come into focus. Yeah, we got some Swedes. They're doing fine. And then as we move to the end, we've got the capsule beds, the pods, whatever you want to call them. They work quite well. I think she's ordered another one. She got one off Temu. So there'll be another one of those going in somewhere. And all the water butts. And our rabbit bedding storage. She goes and collects rabbit bedding from a local animal sanctuary thing. I'll have a look at that in a second. But this bit, there's nothing really in here. It's just all been tidied up and it's ready for the new growing season. Let's just move round to the rabbit bedding storage. Well, it's compost and leaf mould really, but it is rabbit bedding. So again, in there, you can just about see it. That is rabbit bedding and leaf mould. We just lob it in there, mix it up and leave it, and it's absolutely great for ground cover. There's some bags of said rabbit bedding. Fox has been in this one. Okay, and finally on plot 4, the flower border. So you can see we've taken out at the ends, I don't know what the plant was, but it was a big bushy thing that was a nuisance. There was one on each end, there was one there, and there was one there. And we've taken those out. We've laid a little path down the back and used some old pallet collars that we've sort of separated out to put a border down the back. So that is plot 4. Let's go and have a look at plot 5B and the greenhouse. Just on my way back to plot 5B, here's evidence as to why all the tools are broken. Rachel has left some loppers out in the rain. So here we are on 5B. And you can see that it is very tidy. You know, you get your plot set up, whether it's at home or in your garden, you get your little vegetable growing areas set up correctly, and it's incredibly low maintenance. The reality is, all we've done here is a bit of weeding, sweeping, scraping the moss off the slabs. It's been really low maintenance. If this is all we had, plot 5B, this half a plot, then we could have totally not turned up from about mid-November to now. You totally got away with it. This is the way forward. If it's well maintained, you're looking at about 4 hours a week to keep on top of this. It's not a chore. It's a chore when you don't turn up. So what's on 5B? So those big lumps there are the contents of the chilli pots. So you can see a couple of the black tubs in the background there, the square things. They're the things that we grow the chilies in the greenhouse. We'll go in there in a minute. But we've tipped those out, they're on the beds, they'll just get broken down and used as a layer of sort of cover. There's nothing in these 2 beds, they've been cleared. One of them was beetroot, totally emptied. We've got a load of beetroot done now at home. We've got our little lavender border, and that's flowers and beans in that bed usually. We've got a couple of new sort of frames. We can I'll just move across so you can see it properly. Look at that blue sky. That's a real change from how rubbish the weather's been. We've got 2 of these black metal frames that will be great for growing beans. There's one there and there's one lay down over there. The little cube will have carrots in it. We tend to grow carrots in that and see how they do. You should be able to hear Rachel in the background. She's been doing loads of potting on, and there's loads of stuff in the thing, or what they called, those that we're looking at. So behind me, we'll go over there in a minute when I've remembered what they're called. So this thing, the compost bin, that's doing well. That's perfect. We've got some more compost there. That compost bin needs a little bit of TLC because it's got a bit misshapen, so I can't really get a front on it. This one's a lot better. You know, I've driven a post in, it's got a pallet holding everything back, and if we just go and have a little look, you know, it's got a little mesh on the top and it's full of the compost that we've brought over from plot 2B to sort of ready for this season. When I was on 2B, I mentioned the large IBC, the water container, and we can see why it's going to be moving over here, because this thing that we tried to grow, I can't remember, my memory is terrible. We tried to grow something fairly exotic in there. I want to say Luffer, it's not Luffer, they went in the greenhouse, but it didn't work. It didn't get hot enough. The plastic's too brittle, and there's pieces of it on the floor where it's broken off in the wind, so that's going to get replaced. I'm going to put the IBC there, the water collection, the 1,000 litre water tank is going to sit there, and then I'm going to build a frame off the back of these compost areas, so there's like a very small pitched pent roof that will have a gutter on it that will fill the IBC in this area. That's a fairly, I don't know how long that's going to take, but that's a plan for this year. So let's go and have a look. Oh, there's definitely something in, but I'm not going to say what it is because I'll probably be wrong. Let's go and have a look down here at what she potted on. So this is just a load of fruit. So let's go round. Try not to trip over rocks. So in there, we've just got loads of the fruit cuttings. So it's like figs and blackberries and raspberries, all potted on. They're just going to sit in these cold frames. That's the word I was dragging for earlier. They're just going to sit in these cold frames. They'll be perfectly fine in there. And finally, on plot 5B, we have the greenhouse. And it's a very awkward door. So the greenhouse is all tidy at the moment. We've got some seed potatoes on this side, getting ready, and just some stuff in pots there, some onions and shallots. Let's have a look at that label, see what it says. Echinacea white swan, no idea what that is, probably a flower. So yeah, she's just got some stuff ready in here to go. There's, like I say, there's shelving in here, but the shelving will come out because at the back there you can see the pots and self-watering system that we use for the chilies. So once we've finished with all this and everything's ready, these shelves will move and the self-watering planters will go out, and this becomes the chili greenhouse. Last thing on plot 5B is the apple trees. So the apple and pear tree have both been pruned, brought down to probably about 7 or 8 feet. So they'll be fine for this season, and hopefully we'll get a good crop of apples and pears off those. And that is it. It's a lovely day. I'm going to go and help somebody move a shed. Rachel's doing some sort of seed and tool swap and showing somebody around. Ow, for a new plot, just got savaged by a fly. So there we go, ladies and gentlemen, that's the first plot tour of the 2025 growing season. It's a bit difficult to do these this early in the season because there's not really a lot going on, you know. It's a lot of sort of maintenance work and projects and building and stuff like that. But it just goes to show that if your plot is well maintained and you set it up correctly in the early stages, it can be incredibly easy to look after. So here's to a good growing season for 2025, and we'll see you all soon. Bye bye.